Hello and welcome to Cavs Daily, your one-stop shop for everything Cavalier related, presented by FanArc. I'm your host Paul Williams, and you have found the place for the true Cavs fan. Whether you came on board last year with our big regular season, or you've been a diehard your whole life, this is the place for Cleveland fans, and I appreciate you guys being here with me today. If you could hit the like, subscribe, and comment, and let's get that out of the way so we can get to the first topic of the day. So, I think anyone that follows basketball circles has heard it. The East is super weak this year. Injuries to Jason Tatum and Tyrese Halliburton have really put a damper on, I guess, the top contenders of the East. And because of that, the East never gets respect compared to the West. But after the injuries to those guys, I mean, the East is at one of the lowest disrespect points I've ever seen in my life following basketball and the NBA. And yeah, I don't know if it's really gonna be that bad, and I don't know if the Cavs have that easy of a path as like a lot of people may think they do. Um, Teams like Toronto, even. I mean, I don't want to say they're a contender or anything crazy like that, but they do have Scotty Barnes. They did trade for Brandon Ingram midseason last season. They got Emmanuel quickly. They have a good core. They could end up being a playoff team, even if it is a play-in team. And then there's teams like the Magic who made some additions, the Hawks who made some additions. All of these teams also have young pieces that will grow as well. And there's also teams like the Milwaukee Bucks who, despite losing Dame Lillard and not having the team they might have had a couple years ago when they won the championship, they still have Giannis Antetokounmpo. And when you have a player like that, you're going to have a chance regardless. The Knicks, of course, are the other big contender to win the East and the big favorite to win the East outside of the Cavs. But I just don't think it's going to be as easy as people are making it seem. And I don't think it's as cut and dry as just Cavs Knicks, one of those two teams, no matter what. Like, I could see scenarios where the Knicks don't even make the Eastern Conference Finals. I'm not going to say scenarios where the Cavs don't make it because they are. But even when they do make the Eastern Conference Finals, it'll be because they went through some very good teams. And we just won't know or be able to prove that theory or understand really how good the East is, how deep it is, what the contenders really look like until we get into at least close to like midseason All-Star break. But I do think that by around that time, people will be speaking differently about the Eastern Conference. It might not be a juggernaut, missing some of its top players, but I do think it could be a very viable and competitive conference this year. I don't think it's going to be a cakewalk. I could see a lot of there's one team I want to bring up, but I'm saving them. But yeah, I could see numerous teams kind of rising up and being another competitor in the East, just like the Cavs last year. Preseason last year, not many people were picking the Cavs to not just win the East, but blow through it. There were the majority of the pundits had the Cavs anywhere between 3 and 5, 4 or 5, usually around there, to finish in the East. And look what they did with a fully healthy East with the Celtics, Pacers, everyone involved. So it's never a gimme that the teams that look like they're going to be the top teams right now will walk through the season as the top teams. There's a good chance there will be others that rise up and make things more interesting. And I do like Giannis and Miles Turner and the crew in Milwaukee, and I do think they'll add to the competitiveness of the East. So I'm just saying, let's not be too confident going into it. Let's not overestimate the fact that there's a few injuries to a few teams. You still have to go through 14 other NBA teams to make it out of your conference. So That's never going to be an easy task, and I don't think it will be this year. And that is the main topic, or the main thoughts on that topic. But kind of related to contenders in the East or who might rise up, there are a few teams that I think are being a little overrated this year as far as the way they can compete with the Cavs or being on the top tier of the Eastern Conference. Teams that come to mind always when I think of kind of overrated at this point in time are the Orlando Magic and the Detroit Pistons. Both have good teams. I'm not trying to take anything away from them. They were both playoff teams last year, a 7 seed and a 6 seed. Detroit was the 6 seed. Yeah, yeah, that's correct. And Orlando was the 7 seed. They both went out in the first round. Competitive series for Detroit with facing New York. Orlando not so much with the Celtics. And I know the main excuse with Orlando last year was they dealt with a lot of injuries in the regular season, which is true. But at the end of the day, they've had a few years now with this core, and Franz Wagner, he looks better on the offensive end last year than he's ever in his career, and Banchero is an offensive force as well. But I just don't, they don't scare me. I don't love them as a high level contending team in the playoffs in the Eastern Conference. I just don't see them being a threat to the Cavs. I know we went 7 a couple years back, but I do think this is an entirely different Cavs team, even if we have the same players. So I don't see Orlando as being a big problem for the Cavs, and I don't see them being a real threat to come out of the East. I mean, unless some serious injuries happen, I don't see that happening, and also don't believe in the Pistons already making the jump that everyone thinks a team's supposed to make after they go from being bad and then have a decent season with a few young guys. Unfortunately, it doesn't always happen like that. It's not as easy as, okay, they took a step last year with JB Bickerstaff, our old coach, so they're going to take another step this year. It could happen, obviously, but it's not a given, and I don't think they're ready for the next tier just yet. I don't think they have enough. Cade Cunningham is a very good player. One way he has to get better defensively. Um, Jalen Duran, same thing. He's good defensively, but has to clean up his offensive game, and he needs to foul much less. Tobias Harris, they're losing Malik Beasley. They lost Tim Hardaway Jr., and those aren't superstars, but they're veterans that had a real impact on the team. So the Pistons, I mean, we know JB Bickerstaff teams have a ceiling at some point, especially when it's young teams like this. So they might continue to have a winning record. Like they might still make the playoffs in the 5th or 6th seed. But I do think there'll be a first round exit, and they're not a team that needs to be thought about as a serious contender in the East. And I think they'd still have to do a lot of work and change a lot of things to even be a competitor down the road. So the Magic and the Pistons, I don't believe in them. I don't think they're anyone really to be worried about if you're the Cavaliers. But there is a team that I do think no one's talking about that we should be at least a pinch worried about. The Philadelphia 76ers, just a year ago, were talked about as a chance, having a chance to at least make the Eastern Conference Finals, if not win the East, if not win the championship. They had some of the highest odds from Eastern Conference teams to win the championship and to win the East going into last season on the back of the acquisition of Paul George. Obviously, that didn't work with injuries to Joel Embiid and Paul George and some other guys. But they still do have Jared McClain coming back, who was having a great rookie season before being injured. Tyrese Maxey, who's growing into a star. Joel Embiid, if he can be healthy, he just won an MVP a couple years ago. He's at worst a top 10 player. And Paul George, who even at this time in his career can still be a low end star for a contending team if he's locked in and healthy. And if that does all come together for them, I could see them being the second or third seed in the East, or a top four seed at least. And I think they could be a scary out in the playoffs too if they're healthy. It's all going to come down to that. But if they're healthy going into the playoffs with Joel Embiid, McLean, Maxey, and George, that's a tough team to think about going up against. So yeah, I just Philadelphia is someone I think they had all the hype last year, and since they underperformed last year, now I think they're underrated. Like what happens in sports a lot of times because it's so reactionary. But I'm just saying, don't sleep on the 76ers. If anyone's going to rise and be a contender in the East, I do think it could be them. I still don't think they could beat the Cavs, but yeah, the Sixers could be a team that, who knows, we face in the Eastern Conference Finals, and no one's even talking about that being an option right now. And for the last topic of the day, we've discussed free agents, the possibility of that before the season starts, but what about possibly adding someone throughout the season? We know every season, and now off season, we've seen with DeAndre Hunter, Marcus Smart from the Warriors, that teams are willing to buy out vets that in the past they might have tried to trade for small value. So there's some teams in a position like the Washington Wizards with Chris Middleton and CJ McCollum. They're not looking to win right now, and those guys are they're vets that are older now, and they want to be on a contending team. They don't want to. Well, I don't think they want to waste their years out winning 20 games and watching a team hope for the lottery. So they could be possible buyout candidates at some point. Nikolai Vucic, however you say his name, from the Bulls. A couple guys from the Bulls could be buyout candidates. There's guys like that that could come available this season. I could see that happening. Even Terry Rozier from Miami. And two of those guys, McCollum and Rozier, are Northeast Ohio boys. They're from the Cleveland area. So it'd be interesting to see. I wouldn't mind adding a Chris Middleton, possibly, if we could get him for the vet minimum and play him 15, 20 minutes off the bench. He does have championship pedigree, winning one with the Bucks. And if you could get a guy like that for cheap, I'd consider that. McCollum, I don't know. I think he'd be motivated. He's a Cleveland fan, a Cleveland sports fan. So I think the motivation could be there. The Bulls guys coming from that team and that culture, any guy that would be available from them has been there a while, and there's a reason why they're letting them go. I don't know if I'd want to touch that, but there could be some candidates that come up that could be interesting throughout the year that we're not even talking about now. So I think if the Cavs do make an addition, that might be the way they go. Maybe they do sign Middleton or McCollum for the vet min after they're bought out in December. Are you guys on board with that? Well, let me know in the comments. And please like, subscribe, all that stuff. I say it all the time, but I really do appreciate it. If you're still with me, let's get it. We're only 42, 43 days away from the season starting, and I'll be here with you guys every day until then. Appreciate you. I'll see you tomorrow.